Good morning and welcome to the Well Steps webinar. We're so delighted to have you with us today. My name is Dr. Troy Adams. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Well Steps, and it is my great pleasure today to introduce to you Dr. Stephen Aldana, my business partner, my good friend. I also like to welcome on the webinar today Jeff Wilkinson, who is the incoming president of the Greater Phoenix Association of Health Underwriters. Steve will be introducing Jeff a little more formally here in a bit. But it's my pleasure today to introduce Dr. Stephen Aldana. Many people do not know this about him. He is an avid cyclist. In fact, yesterday in the 48-degree temperatures, he cycled on the mountains near his home. That's how avid he is. Said it was a little bit cold, but he loved it. I've been working with Steve for quite a while, and I just like to let you know there's probably nobody on the planet who's more credible about this content than Steve. He has consulted with virtually every major carrier in the United States on multiple occasions. In fact, a few years back, Well Steps, that's basically Steve and I were hired by Kaiser Permanente to train 450 brokers in California about how to engage customers in the wellness conversation. It was a great experience, and we developed lots of great relationships with brokers in California as we answered their questions and we helped them talk about wellness with customers. So a lot of that wisdom is going to be shared with you today. Got a few housekeeping items before we get started. I'd like to let you know that all the slides and materials have been posted on our website, wellsteps.com. Just scroll down on the lower right-hand corner and click on webinars, and you'll find in the archives, you'll find the slides today. Don't worry if you're not sure about that. You'll be getting an email from us about 1 hour after the webinar is over with a link to the slides and the other materials. Also like to let you know this webinar is being recorded and will be posted within about a half hour when the webinar is over. All of the phones have been muted to enable us to have a good audio environment for this webinar today. However, you're free to ask questions at any time by typing them in your GoToWebinar control panel. Just look for the little questions tab and type them there. We'll be answering questions towards the end of the webinar today. With that, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Dr. Stephen Aldana. Steve?
Good morning, Troy. Thanks, everyone. Briefly, we're going to have some information from Jeff Wilkinson today. Jeff got his undergraduate at University of Phoenix and the University of Utah and an MBA at University of Phoenix. The great thing about Jeff is he's just a great dude. And he's been working with brokers for most of his professional life right now. And he's the incoming president of the NAHU chapter in Greater Phoenix. So he's intimately involved in how all this works. And we're going to have Jeff give us an explanation of really the reason why we're having this discussion today. Before I do that, I need to mention to you that most people, when they get to the age of Troy and I, in our 50s and 60s, we've spent our entire careers in this worksite wellness space. Most people would probably give up and go do other things and have a career change, but we haven't. I think we're either stubborn enough or stupid enough to stay in this field for as long as we have. There's a good side and there's a downside to that. The downside is it does get a little stale because we tend to know an awful lot. But the upside is we get to work with everybody in the country, in the world, who is in this space. So the groups that we've worked with that are pertinent to this webinar, I just listed a few of them over the last few years. I mean, it's the who's who of carriers, providers, brokers, done national NAHU meetings. We've just spent so much time in this space. I dare say that we've kind of seen it all. We've seen some great successes and some spectacular failures. That brings us over to Jeff today. And I want Jeff to give us a bit of his time to talk about what I call the problem. It's the competition that is increasing between brokers and consultants for client business. How has it changed over the few years? How is it going to change in the future? What evidence do we have that it is going to be tougher and tougher going forward to not only get new business, but to retain that business, given the level of competition in the broker consultant world? So with that, we're going to hear a little bit from Jeff, and then I'm going to jump in about how we solve this problem and how wellness fits into this puzzle. So Jeff, welcome.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate the introduction. And a good dude, I guess that's a great way to explain me. I appreciate it. I just want to take a couple minutes of the time at the beginning of this webinar to just kind of discuss what Steve called as the problem and the increase in competition in the broker and consultant world. Um, I've sat with many brokers over the last couple of years that have mentioned the increase in competition. Some mentioned that broker firms are now going after business that they had typically stayed away from in the past. So they're seeing industries that they felt comfortable in, or a group size that they felt comfortable in the past, and they're seeing agencies kind of jump into their field that maybe had stayed away from in the past. And one firm in particular that I met with multiple times, they felt like they couldn't compete against what they called all the fancy slideshow presentations and marketing materials that the large firms had access to. So they ended up losing clients that they had for many years and they thought they had great relationships with, but you have some firms come in and show them some fancy materials and kind of sold their solutions. And this pushed this firm, I knew from a thriving operation, to really a single broker firm that was handling both sales and service. And I saw a lot of those people working at that broker firm either take new career choices or have to find employment elsewhere as their block of business just decreased over time. And others have even mentioned that as they want to grow their business, as they're continuing to look to grow their business, it's becoming extremely difficult as they just have to fight just to keep their existing accounts they have on the books, that they can't really go out and grow their business because they're doing battles just to keep what they currently have. And so as the insurance industry is constantly changing, brokers have become more extremely aggressive in growing their business. And so you're seeing this more competition and more aggressive brokers. And so not only are brokers facing that aggressive competition from other brokers, but they also have to worry about carriers marketing products directly to clients. So IBS World Report, I read a report on there. It was November 2013, and it stated, brokers faced increased competition from underwriters that provide insurance directly to clients. They look to reduce their reliance on brokers and agents by expanding their sales abilities through investing in company sales websites or even diversifying their sales division. And so you're not only seeing that competition for brokers, but either outside influences as well. And with that, many of you are aware of the new employer mandates that just came out, ACA or the Affordable Care Act. And so you're seeing some commission reductions as well. And as reported by Stephen Davis, who was a managing editor of AIS Health just in February 2014, Blue Cross Blue Shield, as well as other major carriers, continue to reduce commissions to paid to brokers and agents in an effort to reduce overhead. So these commissions have been reduced substantially due to the minimum loss ratio, or the MLR, provisions of the Affordable Care Act or the ACA. There's currently legislation out there with the S650 and the HR 2328, which are also known as the Access to Professional Health Insurance Advisors Act of 2013, that will help by removing commissions out of the MLR calculations. But will it pass? Is it going to go anywhere? I just got online the other day, and both have just been referred to committee as of March and June of 2013. And the last I saw, they had about a 6% chance of being enacted, and that was according to GovTrack.us. And with my association with the National Health Underwriters, I was actually in DC a couple weeks ago at the annual National Association of Health Underwriters Capitol Conference, lobbying on Capitol Hill with other NHU members. So in doing that, I was speaking with members of Congress and the Senate about co-sponsoring these bills that I mentioned, the S650 and HR 2328. But some were leery because they wanted to just have a full repeal of the ACA. They didn't want to see anything that was going to help it thrive, as they felt like there was too many question marks in it, that they wanted a full repeal. So those being passed, that's a big question mark to get those commissions out of that MLR calculation. John Green, the VP of Congressional Affairs at NHU, reported with 50% reduction in commission fees, many agents and brokers retired, and I've seen that many brokers retire, or even what he mentioned, they sold their books of business. So I've had brokers that I've worked with for many years that have just decided that there's too much work involved now to even keep current clients, to even try to grow their business, that they just sold their book of business and closed up shop, because a lot of this was because brokers weren't adequately diversified. He also continues saying we're seeing continued reductions in the commercial market, and the MLR, or the minimum loss ratio, was supposed to improve transparency, but morphed into this thing that kills health insurance agents and brokers, while it also has not shed light on carrier profits. So what changes in healthcare make it harder to get clients? And with these mandates, as the insurance landscape changes, it's becoming difficult to get clients. Brokers need to spend more and more of time with their clients due to the change in insurance industry. And this can leave more businesses unprotected for other brokers to go. If you're spending more time with your clients, you have other clients that are brokers that are sneaking in the back door and trying to get AORs, broker of record letters, or taking your business. So even keeping business is hard, let alone growing your business. And what makes the insurance industry challenging is there's so much competition out there, both from consumers and for products that you're currently offering by the brokers or agents. You have to be competitive as an agent. You want to make sure whatever you're offering is out in front, that they understand what it's not stored away in the back until it's needed, that they understand the full offerings that you're offering the clients. And a lot of pressure exists for brokers to work more efficiently and find solutions to help. So with that, employers are carefully looking at every expense, and you've probably seen that with your clients, or brokers are definitely seeing that, looking for ways to reduce them as you see an increase in medical costs and other things come up. So bypassing the broker and going directly to carrier, I kind of mentioned before, you can have them pay the ACA fine and let employees get coverage in the exchanges. So if this happens, they don't, the role of the broker kind of goes away. And I've read many reports that kind of say that the broker is, they're kind of pushing the brokers away by including that MLR in or the broker commissions in that MLR calculations. So those kind of things are really what I've seen in the problem be with visiting brokers throughout the years, and also being associated with National Health Underwriters and being in DC. It was really eye-opening to me to see the people that were going to co-sponsor these bills to try to help get that MLR adjusted to get those broker commissions out of there, and also the feedback we were getting from the Congress and Senate about it. So I just wanted to take a couple minutes, explain those kind of things, and I'll just turn the time back over to Steve to take it from here.
Thanks, Jeff. That just kind of lays the groundwork for this discussion about wellness. The problem we're trying to solve in this particular case is, how do we help brokers stay relevant? How do we help you grow your business? And what role does wellness have in this? Well, there's another driving force behind this, and this is what I call the confluence of the two issues. Here's the data on healthcare costs per person per year. This is the actual number that we get. So in 2013, it was $9,700 per person per year. That's the actual number. When we look at the Kaiser data, there's the projected. So we know where this number is going, and we know that the pressure on employers to try to do something about this is not going to go away anytime soon. So how do we marry the fact that brokers are under pressure to continue to expand their books of business, to get a more loyal client base, with not only the continuing trends in healthcare costs, but then there's this one that drives it. It's the changes in our weight across countries and across the U.S. And you can see all of the trends, even outside the U.S., are for our health to get worse over time. So this confluence is really increased competition on brokers, the unending or unchanging pressure of healthcare costs going up, underwritten by all of this change in our health, obesity, lack of physical activity, poor nutrition, is driving employers to really want to solve this issue. So what brokers normally do are these kinds of things. Try to become a trusted advisor so you can become indispensable to them. We need our broker to help us navigate some of these challenges. You have lots of discussions about plan design changes to try to control cost. All of this explains why the popularity of high deductible plans is high now, and it continues to expand. It grows at a very phenomenal rate. We're not going to see that change, because for the first time we're seeing actual cost shifting to the employee, so there's more skin in the game through these high deductible plans. These are outcomes of this confluence. There's your need to really advise them on how to act on the ACA and what actions they should or shouldn't take. And this which brings in this discussion of wellness, and where wellness programs they help solve some of these problems. They're not going to make the increasing cost of healthcare go away. There are too many drivers in the system that are driving that cost, just besides poor employee health. I mean, there's the cost of pharmaceuticals, and there's the cost of healthcare, and there's the carrier piece, and there's the provider piece, and there's litigation. There's a lot of drivers behind this. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But when we talk about wellness programs, I just want to allude to the fact that Not everybody is on board with wellness. Even though they're more popular now than ever, there are critics. Some of the critics have been more vocal than others. Some of the critics have said it's a complete waste of time. In fact, a couple of the quotes that I see in the media, which are stunning from a person's perspective such as mine, who spent my whole career researching the impact and the effect of wellness programs, we get some of the critics saying things like, yes, every single wellness outcome which is made public is made up, which is essentially saying that everything about this industry is garbage. Or 90% of wellness programs sold to companies are counterproductive at worst and worthless at best. So those are fighting words for a guy like me who spends my life doing this. The voices are out there. There is a sliver of truth to some of this. I look at Dee Eddington's data from the University of Michigan, and we look at health risks. Employees who do nothing to change, if we do anything to change our employee health, over time, the number of employees with health risks will increase. Just the passage of time and our continued exposure to our unhealthy culture and elevated health risks, such as diabetes or glucose, obesity, blood pressure, cholesterol, will worsen over time. Most traditional wellness programs, which are really education and awareness, they might cause that trend to look like that. So to these critics' points, sometimes they're not very effective, and it's true. This is a very complex problem, employee health. Getting people to improve their health is tough, and just throwing some brochures and newsletters and maybe one biometric screening isn't going to turn that trend. And that's kind of what we get with traditional programs. We get some improvement, but not a lot. When we take a step further and go, well, these comprehensive programs can actually bend the health risk trend down. And then what Dee calls these champion programs, the companies that really create a culture and have top-down, strong leadership support, they have a very different trajectory. The average program looks about like that. So do they cause health risk problems to go away? No. They bend the trend ever so slightly, but they don't get all the benefit that wellness has. On the healthcare cost side, it's the same thing. Do nothing and your costs are going to go up. We're seeing that right now, and the Kaiser Permanente data I showed you already is there. Traditional program will bend the trend a little, comprehensive program a little more, and then these champion programs are essentially flat. And you could say, well, if this wellness stuff is garbage, you shouldn't have any companies with flat trends, and yet we do. And I've been to many of these companies that have had their healthcare cost trend be zero for up to a decade. They're very aggressive about employee health and wellness and about plan design and getting a good handle on all of this. So that's kind of where we are. The average program is sitting here. So you could say, well, what's the impact of wellness? In some cases, not a lot. It's got to be a program that has some teeth to it. So back to our critics. I like to boil it down to this. All of the research, and there's thousands of articles, have been ignored by many of the critics. The argument really can be summed up like this. Either the critics are right and all the wellness programs in the world are garbage. Either they're correct, or every other CEO and CFO in corporate America, in every business, in every worksite, is an idiot for spending money on wellness. You got a dichotomy here. Either the critics are correct and it's garbage, or every other business decision made by every other company is based on faulty information and they're all stupid. Now, I throw my hat over there with the business and leaders who see value in what we do, who see the good studies that are done. And if it weren't working, we wouldn't see more and more companies doing it. I like to look at the evidence that proves that they work. So why wellness? Why even get involved with this? When we ask employers why they want to do this, it's two things. We want to reduce employee-related expenses, and I open that category up to, obviously, healthcare costs, but then there's workers' comp, and there's disability, and there's retention, recruitment, productivity, and absenteeism. There are powerful reasons to do wellness outside of just the medical cost side. I've been on the campus of Google, and I've been on the campus of Microsoft, and been given their tour, their wellness program, their benefits plan design. They have the richest benefit plans of any organizations in the world. And they do it for really one reason. It's recruitment. They want to recruit the best people, so they have the best benefit plan design. They have wellness programs for recruitment purposes. Healthcare costs are irrelevant in those settings. And then we have the rest of the world doing wellness for mainly productivity reasons because they don't care about healthcare costs. They have socialized medicine. They do it for presenteeism, absenteeism. That's the one reason we see, the main reason. The second reason we see companies wanting to do this is they just want to improve employee health. So brokers are under increased competition to do something about this. They're thrown into this mix, many of them unwillingly. We know that the drivers of cost aren't going away, of healthcare costs. We know that poor employee health is going to continue to get worse. We know that wellness programs are not only effective, but they're more popular than ever, and done right, they do well. So let's kind of get to the meat of this discussion. Employee-related expenses all start with poor employee behaviors. It starts with behavior. So if the goal is to improve employee health or reduce employee-related expenses, then we've got to start back at the beginning by controlling and improving employee health behaviors. That reduces health risks and prevents chronic diseases. That said, I want to take a poll now. In this poll, I want to ask all of you to answer the following question. The question is, as a broker, and Troy, I'm not sure, is that poll launched right now? Oh, here we go. So the poll is open. You can ask the question, as a broker, how do you do wellness? So either you're a broker or you work with a broker. Answer the questions that is here. We don't do wellness. We advise our clients to do it with a vendor. We're subcontracted out. You could tell us which of these is you, because there's really 4 options here, maybe a combination of the 2. And we'd like those of you to go ahead and vote from your perspective as brokers. What are you currently doing in this space? Now, I realize very easily that this is a biased question because you wouldn't be on the webinar if you weren't wanting to do something about this space. So in 5 seconds, I'm going to close this poll. All right, we've got a good number of people voting here. Let's go ahead and share the data with everyone. And we can see that about 6% of you say we don't do wellness as brokers. 48% we advise our clients on wellness vendor selection. 43% we subcontract or we partner it out with some of you. And then we've got another group of you, obviously some of you voted for more than one. They offer wellness programming. So the most popular one is you advise the clients on how to do it. Again, I said this is a biased approach because those of you who aren't doing wellness, you wouldn't be on this webinar in the first place. This is not the webinar for you if you're not doing wellness. So I expected that number to be very small. So look at those 4 options. We'll take a little deeper look right here. Here's the 4 options. Do nothing. Wellness with exclusivity. That's what carriers and brokers tend to offer. Become a trusted advisor, and let me turn this poll off. Become a trusted advisor, share your wellness knowledge to help employers solve their problems, or subcontract with a partner or a wellness vendor to really do this. So let's take a look at each one of these. Now, these are really your options at this point in time. You can maybe cross over and do 2 of these. You could become a trusted advisor and maybe partner, but you're going to have to do something in this space. But there's pros and cons for each of these choices. So I just wanted to take a minute and say, if I were a broker, which one of these should I really engage in? And now remember, we're trying to solve this problem of broker competition, client loyalty, growing your business. That's a perspective here we need to consider. So which of these options and what are the pros and cons of each? Well, let's say the pros of doing nothing. First off, you get to do nothing. You get to maintain the status quo. It doesn't require any additional resources. You don't need to learn about wellness programs. You don't have to attend any wellness webinars. You don't have to understand what outcomes-based incentive programs are or who is the best to do the biometric screening. You don't have to worry about any of it. And I've heard this, and I think this is pretty common. It's not my job to do wellness. I sell insurance. And I get that. A lot of people don't want to go there. It doesn't require any additional skills. And quite frankly, this is the easiest option of the 3. There's pros to this option. There's also some cons to this option. Not every employer is happy with the status quo. In fact, every time you show up with a rate renewal, you all know the response. They're not very happy with where it's at. And we've been tweaking beating each other up over percentages of increases and trying to whittle a percent off here and a percent off there. And we've been playing this game since the beginning of time. So doing nothing doesn't solve that problem. Employers are beginning to ask about wellness, more than just ask. Several are getting really involved. My competition might be using wellness to get a competitive advantage if you do nothing. You risk losing your business if you're not really progressive and forward thinking. And the big one here, just based on the trends that I started off with, the status quo is not sustainable. Those trends are going to continue despite my efforts, despite the success of WellSteps, despite of all our efforts to really turn public health around and to help control the cost. It's going to get worse before it gets better. The momentum going worse is going to continue to push us forward. So doing nothing is not really a sustainable option. For those of you who want to do nothing or want to make a token effort, we have some tools for that. We developed the Worksite Wellness Implementation Guide. It's a very simple guide. You could say, hey, employer group, I don't do wellness, but here's a great guide to give you the step-by-step on how to do it. God bless. I hope things go well for you. I've connected the PDF to this at wellsteps.com on our webinars link. You can download this and use it any way you want. It's an unbiased, accurate assessment of how to get employers to start down this road to make this successful. Okay, option number 2. That's what I call it, when carriers and brokers provide wellness programming, but only if you continue to use their services, so that the wellness option is exclusive to us. If you want the wellness program, you got to stay true to us as your carrier or us as your broker. Change brokers, change consultants, change carriers, then all your wellness efforts are going to disappear. And there are reasons to be exclusive. It encourages loyalty. Carriers know this, brokers know this. It's already available because you have a working relationship with these people. You can package these within your benefits, and sometimes you can label them as free, even though we all know they're not. There is the perception that they're built in, which makes them nice. That can be a revenue stream if you charge a little more for those services. And most importantly, I think they're great for marketing. This is the carrier model. Forever and ever, come with XYZ carrier, and we bolt in health risk appraisal and some online pamphlets and some tools and maybe a health coach. It's very powerful marketing. There's no doubt about it. There are some downsides to the exclusivity model. It's exclusive. And if I'm an employer, if I end my relationship with my carrier or my broker, everything we've done up to that point in time ends. It disappears. So whatever momentum we've had stops. Fail to deploy and engage enough people to make a difference. Because it's used as a marketing ploy, it's not promoted, staffed, encouraged as much. So what we almost always see is participation rates that are extremely low, sub 5%. In terms of evidence, and I consider evidence to be published research papers that have been independently reviewed, we have no evidence that this approach works. Now, if a carrier or a broker wants to provide biometric screening, obviously that's a good thing to do. The question is there any evidence that giving biometric screening to an employer group does anything in and of itself? That's what I mean when there's no evidence. And I know people have done their internal evaluations and people have got their white papers, but I like to see an independent person look at the data and say, yeah, your methods were good, you followed good protocol. This is some evidence that this thing has had an effect. We don't have that from programs that are exclusive. So in many cases, they are nothing more than marketing hype. Unfortunately, some of your clients know this. They know that it's smoke and mirrors, but you've done a good job to sell it. And, quite frankly, the world revolves around selling and marketing. So the programs tend to be poor, give poor results. And here's the biggest one on this one, I think is the biggest con against exclusivity. It's self-serving. We offer a wellness program as a way to keep you loyal to us. It's not client serving, it's broker serving or carrier serving. It is a marketing tool that is self-serving. We do this to convince you to stay true to us. Now, if I'm an employer group and I'm wanting to work with you as a trusted advisor, I want you to view me in the best light possible and help me solve my problems. That means I don't want to do a wellness program that ties me into any single carrier group in case this relationship goes sour. It's not about you, it's about me. It's about me, the client, and I'm interested in solving this problem. So when you have an exclusive relationship with wellness and you have to stay true to your carrier or broker to maintain that program, it sends a message. Yeah, this is good and we love you as long as you stay with us. Well, that sends a message to the clients. I know this is really radical thinking. I mean, that's what we do. We tie people into us with our marketing efforts. But when I tell a client, I'm seriously interested in helping you solve these problems, and I'd love to have your business. We have a wellness program that's available. Whether you use us or not, you can keep this. We want to help you. It sends this message of trust. You have my best interests really at heart and not your own. I know that, again, people freak out when I talk about that. That's the model we have been using for WellSteps for years. Yes, we'd love to have your business. But if we can also help you do your wellness program better, then everybody wins. So when we take models that use exclusivity and we look at what D. Eddington has done with his types of models for healthcare costs and ask the question, if I use a wellness program exclusive from a carrier or broker, what kind of impact do I have? Based on my understanding of all the programs that are out there and the way I've seen, I put them right about there. They're better than doing nothing, but they don't even quite reach the level of traditional or comprehensive. And I know there are some exceptions, and I know a couple of brokers that do fantastic wellness efforts. However, the vast majority of them are still fixed in the marketing arena, and there is very little impact on employee health or healthcare costs because the program is not comprehensive enough to do a deep dive to really make a difference. They don't get to the comprehensive or champion level very often. Now, those are hard words, and I know I've offended about half of you already, but the fact is, I'm not impressed. From a behavior change, from a behavior risk improvement, from healthcare costs, I'm very underwhelmed with the approach, and it has some downsides. So our next option here is to become a trusted advisor. Share your wellness knowledge to help them solve their problems. And this engenders this whole idea of trust. So you got to rethink this issue of exclusivity. You want to work to serve your client's best interests, not yours. And you want to nurture that relationship so you get to know each other pretty well. Here's an example of how this can be true. I'm a broker and I'm talking about wellness in one of my employer groups. Wellness is really good. It improves employee health behaviors and it can even help control healthcare costs. There are a lot of great benefits. Even great changes in employee morale can occur. If I'm selling a wellness program to a client and I'm a broker and we don't do a wellness program at my own company, at my own brokerage service or my own consulting group, if I don't do wellness, what kind of a position am I to recommend or sell you wellness? If it's good for you, wouldn't it be good for me as a broker? And that's the very first question I would ask any broker or any consultant. If this is so good for businesses, are you doing it? Now that's a tough question. It causes you to look in the mirror and say, do I really gut check? Do I really think this stuff is good? If it is, and you're doing it yourself, now all of a sudden I'm listening. So not long ago, the Wellness Council of America published a great case study on a brokerage firm. This is called Borislow. They're out on the East Coast. I believe they're in the Portland, Maine, Boston area. Does your brokerage firm or group do wellness? This is a great case study of a brokerage firm, 22 people, and how they do wellness. Did you use the same vendor that you're recommending to your clients? Because that speaks a lot to me. I trust you. So the pros of being a trusted advisor, you build this relationship of trust. People confide in you. They are interested in your opinion. You're a team player with them. You strengthen your current relationships. You differentiate yourself because you are a trusted advisor. You gain more business. And you survive the changes that are coming through the ACA because you, even though you're working as a broker and you're helping in this area, we trust you. We trust your opinion. We like what you've treated us so far. You really care about us. Versus the cons. Service creep. That's what we call it here at WellSteps. The need to provide more and more services and handholding to these clients as a trusted advisor. You have to decide if it's worth gaining the trust and loyalty of these groups versus the cost it takes to build those relationships and to help those controls. And this is kind of where the broker world and the consultant world kind of cross, and this is a gray area between the two. The consultants aren't going anywhere because employers are going to need them for a long time going forward. It's the brokers that are mostly facing the increased competition and the struggles. Yes, it requires additional training and education. It does take some time to do this. And who's going to be responsible for the wellness program deployment and engagement? Those are great questions that you should be bringing up. I put it in red. Someone has to do the work of wellness. That someone usually ends up a person being called, a term of endearment that we use, Benefits Betty. Well, we suggest you start a wellness program. You've got some obviously good, strong indicators of poor employee health, and obviously your healthcare cost trend is causing a lot of stress and problems here. So let's ask Benefits Betty to implement a wellness program at your worksite. And we see this all the time. It's a consistent pattern. She's in benefits. She does all the different kinds of benefits things, and she is underpaid and overworked and manager of many, and she has no wellness experience, and she's not likely to develop effective wellness programs. And we've seen it over and over again, despite the best intentions, despite some heroic efforts, within 6 months or a year, the wellness program has failed. There's just a process. And again, after 30 years of doing it my whole life, we kind of know what it takes to pull it off. And to expect someone to do that out of the blue is just unrealistic. If it's not Benefits Betty, well, who's going to do this? Well, I know for sure it's probably not Broker Bob. Broker Bob is not interested in doing the wellness program because he doesn't do wellness. I'm really busy meeting with clients and talking about plan design. Quite frankly, there's not much money in this. You know, there's a little commission in WellSteps or other programs, but it's not like the commissions you guys are used to getting on your insurance piece. It's a different level entirely. They're not sure where to start, so we kind of get to the same problem. The problem sometimes looks like this. You've got a group, and that group has a bunch of employees at one location. This is a little easier to do wellness because you can either put somebody on site, or you can have somebody dedicated to that site, and you can work with them. And that's a great option. It's one that's a great common approach. More likely, we see employers that are spread out. We've got groups of employees at locations, and somebody's going to have to manage all of this. I know it's not Benefits Betty, and I know it's not Broker Bob. It's got to be somebody. You've got to find some. At WellSteps, we call this the WellSteps Guide. This person can be live and on site. This person can work off site, but we've also got to have employees on site, coordinators at every single location that are going to support this effort. This is the work of wellness. This is getting the stuff on the ground in their hands, follow up, answering emails. Somebody has to do this, and it has to be somebody who's going to take this job seriously. Smaller employers are never going to have a full-time person do wellness. It's just it's unfeasible to do this. But it's going to take somebody to pull it off. So that brings us to our next option. Subcontract with a partner or a wellness vendor. You can either sub it out, you can partner with somebody, and there's pros to this. One is it shifts the responsibility to the employer and the vendor. So as a broker, you're going, okay, I got my hands off of this. I don't want to do this. I'm going to bring someone in to do this and get out of the way. It gets away from exclusivity, which is focusing on helping the employer and really gaining trust by getting off the exclusive model. Gives the employers the best wellness programming possible, and there's a very, very high chance they're going to keep this client very happy and very loyal. There are reasons to go this route, mainly because the quality of the programming goes way up. Again, no exclusivity, and one that I think gives us a lot of concern is this fact that you now have outsourced this product and you now have very little control. I think at WellSteps, we're pretty much, I would say Troy and I are pretty much, I would say control freaks. We are quality, we're quality geeks. We want a product that is going to be delivered in a very quality way with very high patient or client satisfaction. So we don't subcontract almost anything because we would soon keep it in-house. So when problems flare up or issues happen, we're going to get blamed, by the way, broker, you're going to get blamed if this goes south. If the wellness program doesn't do well, you're going to get blamed. Even though you've subcontracted it out, you're the one who brought it to them in the table. Same thing is true for us. If something happens at the wellness program and one of our subcontractors was involved, it comes back to us, regardless of fault. It's us, which is why we're very hesitant to go this route. We either buy it or build it. We do it ourselves and we just take care of it. Employers will be required to get serious about wellness, and to be effective, this program's got to be comprehensive. You've got to have top senior leadership support. You've got to find a partner that you can trust to do this. And again, even our WellSteps webinar is self-serving. I fully admit that. You go pick what other wellness vendor you want. We'd love to have your business. But here's just 2 things you should ask along the way, whoever you choose. This program's got to have reach and it's got to have impact. It's got to touch as many employees as possible, and it's got to have an effect size. It's got to change employee behaviors and health risks. Without those 2 pieces, whoever you choose, you're wasting your time. And one last final bit on that is there any independent scientific evidence that it works? Not your white paper, not the bar graph that the CEO put together. I want to see some data that demonstrates independently that what you've done works. Because then you've answered the question, does it really work? So here are your options. Do nothing. Provide your own wellness programs internally. And I know several brokers who have wellness people on staff, and they advise and encourage. Most of the time, they're spending time setting up biometric screenings, which is great, but it's one tiny little piece of a much larger wellness effort. It is better than nothing. It is a token effort, and I acknowledge it for what it is. Way better than nothing, but not nearly enough to move the needle. You can become a trusted advisor, or you can partner with a wellness vendor. Your 4 options. What do you get out of this? You get happy clients. You get customer loyalty and retention. You get increased market share, new business, and what I really like the most is you get to differentiate yourself. You add value to what you do. And to me, that is where all of this comes together. So how do you identify groups that are ready for wellness? That's the common question we always hear. I like what you're saying, Dr. Aldana. We'll make a decision on how we want to proceed. How do we know who to proceed with? Well, success in whatever program you choose isn't going to happen without leadership support. Does this group have senior leadership support for a wellness effort? Talk with them about the impact of wellness programs. They've heard about it. I know some other companies that have it. I know our competition always touts the fact that they do employee well. Whatever it is, they've got to talk with them about the truth. If they've listened to just the wellness critics, they're not going to ask you about wellness. They're also going to demonstrate the fact that they don't understand what's really involved and what evidence we have that supports these programs. So you've got to talk with them. Most importantly, I've seen some really good scales and surveys that people can take about a client. You know what? Ask them if they would entertain a demonstration. Ask them, would you like to learn about this? We can show you some things to help you make this decision. As a broker, believe it or not, you can do this. And then this business of listen, I throw that in here for a reason. This is this back to trust business. Sometimes you have to listen between the lines of what an employer is saying. They're bemoaning the fact that their workers' comp rates are unsustainable, that they've really had some morale issues, that their healthcare costs obviously are a struggle for them. Between the lines, what they may be asking for is something more, perhaps wellness, but if you're not listening, probing, digging, tell me more type questions, you're not going to be the trusted advisor you need to be. And it's really hard for us to listen. I'm going to talk more about listening in just a minute with something we want to announce for next month. So what should you share with them if they want to talk? Troy mentioned to you earlier that a while ago we did a huge training series for Kaiser Permanente, where we trained 400 plus of their brokers over a 2-year period on this whole wellness discussion. What we've done at WellSteps, in fact, I'm just going to jump over and show you right now. If you'll go to wellsteps.com, one of our links is the broker link. At the broker link, you can actually click and see some webinars, slides, entire slide decks on what to present to these people. What's the business case for wellness? Well, great. Look right here. You can have the slides. Take them with you. Put your company logo on them. I don't care. There's some great tools here at the broker's link to help you decide how much of this discussion to have. That includes the ROI calculator, where you can actually share with them the data on the ROI calculator and show them how much of their cost their savings. So let me just you've seen this. The calculator actually shows changes in healthcare costs from wellness, presenteeism, and absenteeism based on the actuarial studies that have been published. Okay, these are tools to help you have this discussion with them. They're free. They're all there. You want to become a trusted advisor? Advise them. Show them the information that they have. This brings us to this piece of leadership. If they're not on board, if senior leadership is really not convinced that this is going to be a solution they need to follow, it will fail. That's pretty much a guarantee. We know this from the years, and also Kaiser Permanente hired us to do wellness with 100 of their small businesses. So we engaged in wellness with them. We did wellness program. Unfortunately, Kaiser wanted to pay for the programming, which they did. That's also a mistake. People have to have skin in the game. Just to say, here's a free wellness program, it's like a free puppy. Nobody wants a free puppy. You want a puppy that costs a little bit of money. There's something psychological about it. And it's true for wellness programs. Don't do it for free. It's a mistake. It's a waste of time. Leadership is what we looked at with this. And we had weak, moderate, and strong leadership in these groups. We look at changes in participation and changes in the amount of employees who change behaviors. You can see a very strong trend. And I thank Troy for putting these slides together and analyzing that data for KP. So leadership support looks like this. They support the wellness effort. They share a vision and the objectives for the wellness program with others at the organization. They communicate it through each of the different departments. It's front on the agenda. It's in the meetings. It's talked about. It's in benefits. It's in safety. It's in HR. It's throughout every group. They create a wellness committee that gets together to make decisions and to decide on programs and decide how to proceed and to determine what the incentives are, work with a benefits-based plan. They allocate resources to do this, and most importantly, they participate. This is what it looks like when they do participate. Lastly, you can't expect employers to pay for wellness. In addition to healthcare costs and workers' comp and all the things that they're paying, it's tough to get them to expect to pay for wellness also. Well, brokers who are good, they can find funds to do wellness. And to help brokers do that, we did one last tool. It's in the tools link at WellSteps. It's called the Wellness Budget Calculator. And what we did is we gathered data from a couple of actuaries. We were able to ping whole selection of carriers across the United States looking at premium costs. And we said, what if my number of employees were 1,200 and their annual healthcare spend is this, our current copay was 10 and our deductible amount was 100. What if we just move the copay or move the deductible ever so slightly? What's the potential savings? What's the difference in that premium cost? How can we tweak this so that the out-of-pocket for an employee can be tweaked, the plan design can be tweaked just a way so there's a little bit of money generated enough to create a wellness effort. It's a simple plan, and it's based on the actuarial data from multiple carriers across the United States. Yes, it's an estimate, and you guys know how to do this better, actually dollar for dollar. But point is, there's a way to do wellness so that it's cost neutral for a client. We can tweak the plan ever so slightly to generate some funds to get this started. It's up to you to have that discussion. So in summary, to stay competitive, brokers must become trusted business advisors. There's just no other way really around this. Wellness is one of the most effective strategies employers have. It's the only strategy that they have to solve multiple problems, the business of cost, health along the way. And lastly, regardless of which role brokers take, this wellness thing isn't going away. Now back to my comment about listening earlier. A great skill for a broker or a consultant to have is to really actually visibly listen to your clients. It engenders trust. It helps solve problems. It goes a long way for these people to feel like I have been heard and understood. That's an art. And nobody does this better than my good friend Jeremy Hunter. Our next webinar in April 24th, Better Business and Life When You Master the Art of Listening. He's Harvard trained. He's a PhD. He's on faculty at the Drucker School of Business in LA. He's extremely sought after. I'm tickled pink that Jeremy's going to spend some time with you. This will be one of the best webinars we've ever had. I know it's a little out on the edge, talking about listening. His stuff is fabulous. And I know that because in 3 days, I'm going back to LA to the California Health and Longevity Institute to teach Merrill Lynch senior leadership, wellness, and how to listen. Because when they do, their clients are more loyal and more faithful. So this information is transformative from a business and personal perspective. So my plug for Jeremy and our wellness webinar next month. Troy, Jeff, let's do some Q&A.
All right, let's do it. Steve, there are a couple of questions that came in about the Comprehensive and Champion Company. I think we could just focus on the Champion Company. That's obviously from Dee Eddington's book, Zero Trends. And some people aren't familiar with that work. And we're wondering if you could just sort of quickly describe what you mean by champion, or what Dee meant by Champion Company.
We actually developed a paper on this, Troy. If I recall, it was our essential ingredients paper for an effective wellness program. And obviously, reach and impact is high on that list. They also have to have a benefits-based incentive design so that there is some teeth in this program, whether it's a premium differential or a different qualification for a different health plan. Those things are top down. So they come from the top of the organization. It affects every benefited employee. There is some meaningful motivation for them to engage. And then there's two other things. It's this really total end-to-end leadership support and really effort to change the culture, where these committees get together and work on items to change the culture at work. Flexible work time, flexible schedules at home, the ability to exercise at work, or the ability to have good nutrition available to them, and incentives and tools, everything in place. It's a comprehensive approach with powerful senior leadership support that makes all of this work. And we can make that paper available, Troy, on our essential components.
Okay.
Coordinators who are engaged, on-site coordinators who are fully engaged is a big piece of that pie also. That's the difference.
We've talked about that numerous times. By the way, Steve, I will mention that Shelley says our upcoming webinar is not on the edge at all. It's a great webinar topic, and we'll expect Shelley to be the first person to register. Just go to wellsteps.com, and we've already posted that webinar there, so you could get busy registering for that. We've got a question here from Michael, who wants to know about health savings accounts, and this could be a question for either you, Steve, or for Jeff. He says, how does a health savings account plan affect wellness opportunities? Is a health savings account and wellness a perfect fit?
Well, it's one more way to motivate and incentivize your employees. So of all the ways to encourage employees to participate, almost all of them are extrinsic. They come from the outside. And these are premium differential, gift cards, money, water bottle, t-shirt, paid day off. Maybe it's a contribution to your HSA or your flexible spending account, an employer contribution. It's an incentive, and it obviously has tax benefits, and it can come from the benefits department, and it can be an outcomes-based incentive. It's one more of a variety of ways to do this. People like to get something benefits-based that involves some kind of transaction of money. It could be a contribution to a HSA, could be a contribution to a flexible spending account, could be a contribution to an IRA, could be a savings or a differential on their premium differential. There's this multiple ways to slice and dice. They're all good. They all should be in place. They shouldn't be too big. We're just dangling a carrot out there, because at the end of the day, if I stop paying the incentive, does the behavior go away? If that's the case, then they've never really internalized the reason to change their behaviors. I always tell people, behavior change comes from the heart. I have to be able to want to do this the rest of my life with or without your incentive. Now I'm at a place where this is sustainable. If it's hinged upon the incentive, then I've lost the real long-term impact of this. But it's one way to get people started down this path. And you can do it that way also. Talk to your benefits HR people and set something up.
Thanks, Steve. We always get people who ask about the availability of the PowerPoint slides, and just to remind everyone, the slides and the recording, actually the slides and all the other materials mentioned by Steve are available at wellsteps.com. Click on the webinars link on the lower right-hand corner. The recording will be there shortly. Here's a great question from Doug, Steve. He says, do you know of any healthcare insurance companies and workers' comp that are working together to advance the wellness cause? And then he asked a second question: does WellSteps do anything to break down the safety and wellness silos? It's a fabulous question.
Turning the workers' comp providers, man, there's been so much discussion, and there's some great research on this. Eric Finkelstein from RTI, North Carolina, Dr. Finkelstein has published some of the best research on the connections between poor health, obesity, and workers' comp that have ever been done. They're amazingly powerful studies with tens of thousands of people. There's a great connection there. I will tell you, I've had lots of meetings and lots of discussions with the workers' comp providers. I've never seen anybody really get serious about it. They kind of go right up to the edge where we want to do something here, and then they just kind of back away. It's new and different for them. So I don't know of anybody who's serious about it. A lot of talk about it. The second half of the question, Troy, was regarding
whether or not we've worked with any groups to help break down the safety and wellness silos.
yeah, the safety wellness silos. Um, you know, sometimes HR or benefits can be seen as the enemy, where safety is sometimes in it for the employee. Sometimes, a lot of times, I'll see wellness in with safety. Sometimes I'll see wellness bolted in with marketing within an organization. They're both good places, but the same processes you use to do safety initiatives are the same ones you're going to use to do wellness initiatives. So they have the similarity in that the communication process is the same. You can do safety with a lot of heavy sticks. You can beat people into compliance with safety. We try not to beat people too much with wellness. It's a little bit softer, lead them by the way, help them make the right decisions. Not if you plug this in over here without turning that valve first, you die. And you get fired if you don't die. So it's a fine line. It depends on the organization. The communication channels are the same. And one way to look at it is, regardless of what group offers a wellness program, the safety people know how to change a culture at the work site. That's what they do. You've done it with safety. Now you just need to do it with wellness. Or you've changed behavior, you change processes, you change the culture, you have committees in place. I mean, you have all the same structure in place for safety. Use that as a template to do wellness.
Thank you. We've got somebody who's asked you please to post the Finkelstein article you just mentioned. So I'm going to give you that as homework after the webinar is over, Steve. And then I
I
think
don't want to do homework.
this is a question I think that Jeff would be able to answer really well. He says, on general, Jeff, are employers taking advantage of the ACA incentives, and how are brokers? How have you seen brokers helping with this effort?
Well, that is a great question, and you do see some of these clients taking advantage of the ACA efforts, and I would say that the brokers taking advantage is just, hopefully I answer the question, it's just being proactive. You see a lot of, a lot of the mandates and things are being delayed over time, but I would just suggest brokers, as a part of the differentiating yourself, is to be proactive on those measures and to work with your clients to ensure that they're ready to go with any ACA mandates or changes that come about over time. I know that they delay a lot of things, and it's hard right now with brokers as they're constantly changing and evolving. You hear of changes weekly. I talk with brokers and joke all the time that it's you think you have your finger on the pulse of it all, and then you get new information the next day about something that's changed, and you have delays. And so I would say that I've seen some take advantage of the ACA, but I think that brokers it's really key to understand your clients and to, as part of that differentiating, factor, is understanding their needs and where different ACA things will apply to your clients and where it's going to be best to help them in other areas. I don't know if I answered your question. I gave you a lot of words, Troy. I don't know if I
No,
solved that or
that was
not.
good. Here's a follow-up question. Now
Yeah.
we've done webinars on this before about the changes. The 30% of employee benefit costs are available for 20. Actually, for this year, employers may offer employee rewards of up to 30% of employee health benefit costs. Now that's the cost that comes from both the employee and the employer added together. That's
Right.
available for a reward if the employee participates in wellness programs. So the question was, please explain that. We're looking for a kind of a quick flying overview. We've covered that, as I mentioned in my
Okay.
comment to this questioner, that we covered that in detail back in September. That
Yeah.
webinar is in our webinar archive. So if you could address that, Jeff.
No, that's great. I would refer that to Troy. You did an excellent webinar, and I think Dr. Aldana did an excellent webinar, follow-up webinar, two webinars in a row that I would suggest going through. They're really detailed on the ACA and the impact, and whether you're a health contingent wellness plan or whether you're a participatory wellness plan is a big word for me. Um, the one thing that under the HIPAA regulations, and it could offer participation health contingent wellness programs cannot exceed 20% of the health plan's premiums. However, as permitted by ACA, the new regulation increased the maximum reward to that 30% of the premium for all other health contingent wellness programs. I don't know if that answered your question or if that was quick, but I would strongly suggest that they listen to your webinar, the Dr. Adams, and then the follow-up webinar that Dr. Aldana did. And I think, Troy, I don't have the dates right up, but I've referred many people to those because they were very informative on the ACA and the effects of wellness in that. So I would suggest that they look at those. I mean, that would be my suggestion. So
Thank you. And then Jeff, I'll also refer a listener to the tools link, because the wellness budget calculator that Steve mentioned is a free tool, but there's also a tool in our called the wellness compliance checker, which will demystify a lot of the privacy laws, including that particular law with respect to the new ACAC policies. We've got time for one more question. I'm going to direct this to Steve. This has all been a great discussion, Steve, but how does this information you just shared impact groups that are fully insured versus self-funded?
If you look at all the benefits of a wellness program regarding employee health care costs, excuse me, regarding all healthcare costs, there is a difference between self-funded and fully insured. Obviously, the fully insured don't get the same savings that a self-funded group would because they're not keeping those monies in-house. However, if we take the healthcare cost out of the equation as a reason to do wellness, there's another 15, 16, 17 other reasons that your company benefits from doing this outside of just the healthcare cost piece. Obviously, small groups can affect the group rate and they can affect the trend of the pool as much. So there is a limitation there, there's no doubt. But in terms of absenteeism, productivity, morale, recruitment, retention, health, behavior, health risks, disease, it's all the same. In fact, in outside the US, they do wellness programs. The healthcare cost is irrelevant. So yeah, there is a difference on the healthcare cost side of this. I would say most of our groups in our book of business are fully insured groups. They're doing it as a way to help bend the trend a little bit, but they're doing it mostly for all the other reasons that are engaged. That's to be a more productive, effective organization.
That's wonderful. Well, I'd like to, on behalf of Dr. Aldana and Jeffrey Wilkinson, myself and the rest of the WellSteps team, we would like to thank all of you for taking time out of your busy Thursday to spend an hour with us. And also like to remind you to register for our upcoming webinar on listening, which will be sometime in April. Go to the WellSteps website to take care of registration. Have a great day, and we'll be excited to have you join us on our next webinar. Thanks, everybody.